How much will Steam Machine cost? Now, in our last podcast, we were speculating on what we think it could cost, whether it's going to be more like a console, is it going to be super competitive like the Steam Deck was, is it going to be more like a game and PC price? Since then, Frames Per Second podcast had an interview with a couple of Valve reps, and they specifically asked what to expect price-wise. And the Valve reps said, if you build a PC from parts to the same level of performance, then you can get an approximation of what this thing will cost. And they said it will not be subsidized. They want it to be competitively priced, but it's not going to be subsidized the way that the Steam Machine was. Since then, Linus, from LTT, he did a build video where he took parts that were approximately the same performance as what Valve is quoted in terms of like the CPU and the GPU and the RAM, and he bought them and built a similarly performing device. Linus doesn't think it will be a reasonable, $500 console price. He believes it's because it would undercut other manufacturers, other people looking to make Steam machines, and he believes that the reason for this device is to encourage manufacturers or, third-party OEMs to make their own Steam machines, to build their own devices that run Steam OS. But that's kind of similar to what the original Steam machine was about, right? Like they were building it more to say, this is what a Steam OS device could look like. This is the performance it could have. This is how it could run things. And they were doing that with the idea that we're going to encourage other people to make Steam machines. And it didn't do well. This, in his mind, is supposed to be about the same thing, but now Valve is actually making the device themselves to then encourage other device manufacturers to make them. I don't see that happening. I don't know. I think that this needs to do well on its own, because I don't think they're going to make a device and other manufacturers are going to be like, hey, we can make a Steam OS device ourselves and it will sell well and it'll perform well, because like they launched the Steam Deck, but then people didn't turn around and make their own Steam Decks. They didn't turn around and make handheld devices run in Steam. They made Windows handheld gaming devices. So yes, the Steam Deck kind of encouraged people or inspired people to make their own gaming handhelds, but it wasn't a Steam handheld. It was a Windows handheld. So I don't think this Steam machine, whether how well or not well it performs, I don't think this is going to encourage other OEMs to make Steam machines. Anyways, to get back to Linus's build, his build cost just over $600. And that was when you took the lowest historical prices for the parts that he purchased for it. But with the current climate of PC parts, whether it be the astronomical RAM prices or storage prices or what have you, or GPU prices, it came to about $910 with current market value. So Linus estimates it will cost between $600 and $650, leaning more towards the lowest historical prices, and also leaning to Valve is the big company. They're going to have large orders in terms of parts that they're purchasing. So they would get a better price, let's say, than you or I would buying these parts right now. The Fan the Deck podcast, or Fan the Deck YouTube channel, he also looked at the frames per second video and he had his own kind of thoughts on how it could be priced. And he believes that, if it's $800, then it's going to be DOA. I like the idea of it being around $600. That seems more reasonable to me than, I think, when we last talked, we were saying like $700, $800. I think whatever it comes out at, it's going to sell. I definitely think it's going to sell. If it's $2,000, maybe not. But I think anything sub 1,000, it's going to sell. The question is how much it's going to sell, how many devices it will sell. And I think if it can come in at 600, right, I think it would sell really well. The more you creep up, I feel like, I think we mentioned $700 last week, or, our last podcast. I don't see it being as much of a smash hit as the Steam Deck was. Valve reps have said they need their hardware department to be affordable, and it needs to be able to sustain itself. The Steam Deck was subsidized because they knew that we're going to sell this at a loss, but it's going to get people in the Steam ecosystem. It's going to get people buying Steam games that wouldn't buy it before, that wouldn't have bought the games before. But they can't operate. They've said they can't operate the Steam machine that same way. I think when you look at the price in that, that Linus and other YouTubers have worked out, I think it's a pretty, fair approximation. But there's also things that Valve has built specifically for this device that you can't get, just off the shelf. like HDMI CEC support, like Bluetooth and wireless support that they've built into it for, up to 4 controllers without the controller puck, like the antennas they've built in, like the Steam controller support that they've built in. So I would like to think it's around the 600 to 650 that Linus mentioned with his build, but I'm interested to hear, from what you've seen, do you think that is more accurate? Do you think it's going to be closer to 600? And if it is, does that make this device, this console / PC hybrid, more interesting to you? If you like this video, then you might like my other video on the Steam Machine announcement. And get subscribed for more Steam hardware news. Peace.